주로나마 다다다 무슨 잠이 너무 벌거요래데 이디까지 무슨 또마 산제 초행 진리 이들은 무슨 삼천미 이나도만 벌거요데 다 진리 시라데 당부터 탐합은 오케이 당고래데 때문에 가시니 거기에 대 말이 이 산제 그무슨 뒤에 얼마 뒤에서 내가 뒤쪽으로 저거에 좀 봐데 남캐 가짜로 죽고 가짜로 사지 독이 참대 이러지. 이 무슨 단나나다 사지라 대바지 대지감에 다 사지 지리쇼를 지리를 책돼야 돼. 하장 가르쳐 버리 땡크지들이 또 바차죠 그래서 맨제상도 또 요지. 맞다가 자갑지 요래. 나무 자고지 세모 그래서 자고지 세모티들이 다다다디 뭐그 자캅들아 바만로그 하장진이 세모 장보려래 이렇게 마트에다더니 거기서 자갑 투바한 거요래 이렇게 세모티 들이 뭐도 갖고 요래 들이 뭐도 지지들이 제바지 이렇게 사지 좀 내네 되는 송 사지 좀 내네 치랑송 로바들 송들이 사지 요마데 콩 요거 이창 가지고 있다고 콩 그래 저게 요거 인성 그래서 뭐데 그래서 뭐데 벤네들이면 이 뭐데 잡아지 세트들이 다 세모들이 상속서만 집에 용지 제보요배 그래서 뭐창 딱바로 심지보 뭐도 가리래지 땅은 사지 용말 되는 심지보도 롱도 무슨 똑바로 사지 빌라 같이 보면도 이제 이 집에서 잡아지 다 사지 찐지게 상지 찐지실에 팩트를 타를 버리더니 마스도 맞는 놈을 가지들이 찐지는 팩트를 하래 어따때는 공진이 줘야지 약합지게 짜겠지 이 버들 마음 가보냐 서로서 들이 사지 좀 되지 달디 갖다 손들 책에서 로는 맨디상도 또 둘이서 와지 손들 들이 들어보겠더니 사지 내용이 좀 들이 사지의 공문이 산속에들이 인수 접촉이 참아서 처신 놓으더니 이 롱바들들이 소동을 펴고 송 인수 산속에서 접촉이 탐색들이 이 처신마들이 펴기 라라 쪽 때라서 봤더니 총천나바나 속들이 약합들 백 탐색 호지요 봐 사지 좀 되게 샵 소리에 또 살아말 봤더니 깡 고바잡네 이렇게 찍찍들이 펴기 이제 남디 자캅데 남발겨서 나무 자캅겨서 줄거들이 세모찌가들이 대다 노동 치고 수진 백치열이 들리들이 다 또주데 대조되는 거죠 거래 그래서 당무 속에 강식 타바이 지바된다나 나 욕대 딱 봤을 때 로지 계속 가지 석을 지나 들이다 딘드는 공유성 들이 주가 나가다가 차들 롱거 깨찍깨찍들이 샤트고 요래 대다는 데데 손들도 뒤진데 들이 사지를 가져서 왔다나들이 그 정보를 다시 뭐 그래서 당시 손들 길리셔 사절선 합지에 들이 나타리도 마퍼가 있더니 몰라 돈다 가리 서가 사지 일 지마타데 사지랑 너는 요디 이 세사지 됐다 사지 요삼 거래 난 사지게랑 그 셈데 땀아 차서 제일 사지를 라고 요래 이거 어려운데 이 셈데 다가 똑바로 뇽바지 찾아오네 랑 셈데 사지 카카 말이야 나고 대발 대다오도 하고네 그래서 나봐 사지가 동안데 주가 시종매봐 롱매봐 그때도 사지 용지 때문에 뭐 송고요래 제말에 배송을 공주왕을 가르쳐대요 공식이요 말이 시디요 말이 저 가지고 요런 콩을 샌데 요래스 상태도 싫었디 그래서 말이 그래서 답답지게 때지도 사지 무서요 산 트리타라 뭐 도발린 거래스
So now, Dhamma friends, we come to the actual conference of the Refuge Vow. And so for that, first we need to invite the Buddha, the field of refuge, the refuge tree. And then after having invited the Buddha, then we offer the 7 branches, such as prostration and so forth. And so normally not for the invitation, an ordinary person thinks that now is the invitation, so now I'm inviting him from somewhere far away. Now he needs to come, or now it's kind of like waking up somebody from sleep or so. But actually, it's not like that. But the Buddha actually is always present and always looks upon all beings at all times throughout the 6 periods of day and night, all the time, day and night. Because the Buddha's mind is without coming and going. The Dharmakaya pervades wherever space pervades. And wherever the Dharmakaya pervades, that is where the Buddha's compassion pervades. So it is just like in a way symbolic that we are inviting the Buddha, but actually the Buddha is always there, but we invite the Buddha to cultivate devotion. So these words that the invitation, the words of invitation are actually very, very precious, and they are called, so the words are called, it comes from a girl called Mendesangmo. And she was alive when the Buddha was alive, and she was the daughter of a king in a Buddhist country, but then she was supposed to get married to a king in a non-Buddhist country. So she didn't, she was very sad about that. But then if she wouldn't go there would be war between the 2 countries. So in order to sustain peace, she had to move to that country to get married there. And so then she was very sad because she was a devotee of the Buddha. And then she actually went into the presence of the Buddha and lamented and said, I don't want to go to a place where the Buddha does not exist, where you are not. And then the Buddha said, you should go, because it's not that I'm not there. Whenever you call upon me, you invite me, and I will be there in an instant. And so with that, the Buddha sent the girl off, and so then she went to that other country, and she was actually a person who was quite a woman with great qualities, a real practitioner. But then she was never happy because she missed being close to the Buddha in that other country. And so then the king then once said that, so why is it that you're never happy, you never look happy? And she said that actually I have no reason not to be happy. I have everything I need here, but I'm not happy because the Buddha is not here. And so then the king then said that, but then the Buddha is so far away, this country is very far away, so how could, we couldn't even invite him, he could never reach here. And so then the girl said that actually the Buddha told me that whenever I call upon him, he will be there. So our teacher is not like your teachers. My teacher can come here any moment. And so the king was quite impressed by that. And so then he set up the space for her to make her supplication in her chamber. And then she recited this prayer of invitation that's here in the Refuge text. And that's why the name of the prayer is also called kind of the prayer, which is the realization narrative of the girl Mendesangmo. And so then she recited that prayer of invitation to the Buddha. And so at that time, Buddha was far away. He stayed in Shravasti at that time. And so then the Buddha heard her prayer, and it was late at night, and in the morning, early morning, he summoned his arhats and bodhisattva disciples and so on and said, we need to go miraculously to this country and to bestow the sojong vows, which is to this girl, the lay person's vows. And so then all the arhats and the bodhisattvas, they all went there miraculously. Some of them traveled on the clouds, and some have traveled through on dragons and so on. And actually all the people in that country, that non-Buddhist country, saw them coming. They all saw those miracles. The Buddha himself, he hovered on, like, without his feet touching the ground. He flew there, but in an instant. So he reached there almost instantly. And everybody saw that too. And so because of that, then actually that country eventually became a Buddhist country. And so this is how this girl, Mendesangmo, actually opens the eyes of so many to the Buddhist practice, and she accomplished the benefit of sentient beings really extensively just through this prayer, actually, this invitation. So therefore, this is the invitation that we will begin the refuge ceremony with. And then we start with the refuge. And actually, as we said before, even though there are these words of invitation, actually the Buddha himself had said, whenever you supplicate me, whenever you think of me, I will be actually there. And that what he really meant is that his mind is all pervasive. The Dharmakaya pervades wherever space pervades, and for this reason the Sambhogakaya can appear anywhere at any moment. And therefore this application actually is very precious. And whenever we recite it, we should think that the Buddha is there, actually there, just like in the old days, miraculously appears and is ultimately always pervading. So in this way, we can bring the Buddha here and also receive the Buddha's blessing. And so this is what we will do, the invitation, the blessing, and then the conference of the refuge vow. And so in brief, when you should think in this moment that the Buddha is actually there, he's actually coming. Because actually the moment, as the Buddha himself said, the moment you bring him to mind, he is already there actually. So this is how you should think here. And in this way, your mind also becomes pure. And when the mind becomes completely purified, that mind itself is what we call Buddha. Actually, the Buddha dwells within your true nature. And the mind just temporarily is like water, like defiled, polluted water. But ultimately, when the mind becomes purified, you realize that ultimately your own mind has never been apart from the Buddha, is the Buddha. So in this sense, you recognize the inner Buddha that is already there, abiding in the nature of the Dharmakaya, that transcends arising and cessation or coming and going. And there are so many more qualities taught about the Buddha. Also, Milarepa said before he passed away, he said that actually I cannot die. My nature will continue to pervade the 5 elements. So whenever you think of me, call upon me, I am there. My mind is there, which is the mind of love and wisdom. So reflect in this way, contemplate in this way single-pointedly at this point, and think that the Buddha is actually here. This is how you should take this vow.
Tirita Sanji Chomdi, the Naso Jinjo, Sanji Jis Jopa Tangela, Horden Lang Yorese, Horden Longzi Lap Yores, Kaharese, Concolo Jasi Pai Yok, Simply Tonatini, Samti Tapo Jaji Dinatini, Coop Angry Pavores. They just say, Soala Tin Romonotini, Siva, they Tong Nakapa Dina Tonkari, Dilla Sanji Jis Timado, oh, this Sanji Pororis. That's it. You did choose it. Oh, my son did you don't look at it. 이를 찌아요, 그래. 삼바다 형제. 나 형제도 왜, 내 취지수 좀 봐시. 견디 지수님한테, 나 사진이 저 견디네시. 멜룡아, 이 썸을 센티미터를 핀 까지 돈을 따고, 누가 따니까 이거 말이, something. 대체기도, 니 버리 뚜골을 들이라면 내 같이 한번 되게 딱 봐더니 처마도 통점이나, 내 커널로 요렇게 되게 따라지니, 걔들 맡아져, 니는 통조고 요래시. 니는 조가면 사진 지수를 꽂혀서 지수 좀 봐지. 그러니까 하자 따지 모래.
And so we are all followers of the Buddha. And for example, as a follower of the Buddha, for example, use this bowl, which is called the begging bowl. The bowl that the Buddha used. And why is it called the begging bowl? It's because when the Buddha first was a wealthy prince, and he left behind the kingdom and all the material wealth in order to practice, to cultivate love and to benefit sentient beings. So for this sake, he gave up everything. And having given up everything, having renounced material life, he went to beg for alms and ate whatever he received with this begging bowl. And that's all he really had. And therefore, this is what reminds me of the Buddha. The reason why I drink out of this begging bowl is because then I remember the Buddha. Whenever I drink out of this bowl, I remember the Buddha. I remember this is the Buddha's bowl. And when I remember the Buddha, I remember the Dharma. And then I remember I'm a follower of the Buddha. So what does that mean? What do I have to do? I have to cultivate love. Do I have love? How much love do I have? So you remember the 3 jewels in this way. And now everyone actually, having taken the refuge vow, becomes a Sangha or a follower of the Buddha. So you also remember the Sangha. And what the Sangha has to do is to benefit all sentient beings with body, speech, and mind. And as much as you can, and to not cause at least any harm towards others at all. So this is what I remember when I just drink from my bowl, my begging bowl. And no matter where I go, and even if I only have water to drink, I always have this with me. I always bring that with me, even though I might not have anything else on me. This is the bowl that all the Sangha can drink of. All the Sangha can have such a bowl. And so it is a way to recollect the 3 jewels, and that's why to me this begging bowl is very precious.
lo ye se ra che da wa che jiang te mo te wa ye che jiang guo lo wo de zo bo tu je che den ba tu je je ba de ba bo na de de je de ji je lo lo ba de ja de we ge we ge so le do je che to no cho je ba je ja chi la san zhong le zhou ba lan ya dong la ba da la ra de ku xian ge zang ba yong de ge de lo ya chang za lo do je ja je da le na lo ba ba me la je je gang bo ba pa mo zhou ba ja wan zhong ba ga ju la ma na lo zo wa de wo me chi de ja ba rong le to to sa je ge yong wo ra ze jo ga ma sa to de ba sa la me jiao lo zo wa de sa sa dong a chen da chu jin qi nya zo be bo ji wa ji la so se ji zo de nya de da ji na dang ba chu ji ne de za de zo 다 담아게 지지 나오지 그래다다 넘버 3 고조 좀 돼야 그래다다 랑기 잠기도 막 나니지 게뉴지 찍어 창거요 땅아나 르지 랑기 두고 진로지 방 게뉴레 카리들이 내 맞게 레좀데 다 각시시 에게요 대출에 세계는 터바리들이 세계 탐지를 사바지요. 이 술가들이 사지 정도의 가능이 디사마데 체메 바제토 그 말이 다사바 체메 말 고아상의 요래. 이때 고조선 라랑길라마 게베시기 토마테라 창제 데니 존데 문투레더니 라마 게베시니 게긴 체테 탑지 가든지 양당야도 진네 어때 탐지 뭐 다당아래 어때 찍라 게디 찍라 지스디 사지 고조선 창근도 없지 얘네들이 게디 탐지 하다 대바다는 게래 대바다는 게담 체나 게나들이 라나 패기요래 라게 차그럼도 쇼도요래甚至는 희게제나 대지양 다진 차그럼쇼요래 고조를 제거만 대바지나 양 다진 차그럼쇼요래 대지가 대바 다낭제를 들이자 상하가 나와요 거래 다낭제를 드는 거네 동담을 대발해 다다 대회들이 다 고조 라게 계시니 참만 고조선 참도 이제 강내 주거든이 록이 얘기 탐지했더니 사제주 발에서 너는 핀바다 네가 좀 탐지 남바 이용 메용 적인 강내더니 새 남바디 다 남바고서 잡기도 맞췄대 남바래 나가 남바데 남바 이용 메용 취직이 강거선이甚至는 막막 핀바다 네가 십대가 남나 석이 남가다 또나 되게 님바해 오 남은 남바 유니티 되게 사와가 남바 가래서리 남바 지와 사지가 다 요래지 사지 샘에서 샘도 우니 산지 남 사지 샘도 사지가 이제 샘도 싸마 차소들 사지 그 요래 저 똑바지 뇨마지 쳤들 샘지 딱을 뇨마지 쳤대 아쌍바지에서 사지 딱을 사지가 마차비 찍다 요 말이 십지 남 사지니 오자 로버트 메드 사지 종지지 다대도 자체 버리 땡사 버리 대하고를 대서다 랑게들 또 다다는 대바께서 그 감리지에 오 사지의 시합 내자리도 와쳐서지 이추 나는 ninja지 자리도 막니 가래 나 취지고 30년 뒤고 대도도 찍송 지도에 지리는 거예지
Then next we come to the repeating of the refuge vow. And so for that, so we bring to mind the outer 3 jewels. And so the person who gives you the refuge vow is the embodiment of all the 3 jewels. So in this case, it is me giving you the vow as the Sangha. And within the Sangha, you should think the 3 jewels are complete. So, for example, how the jewels are complete within me is that with my body, in my actions, I abandon harming others. I do not harm others. And therefore, I'm the Sangha. And with this speech, I teach as well as I can the nature of the twofold truth. And so that's why my speech is the Dharma. And then how is my mind the Buddha? It's because really from the bottom of my heart, I do love all sentient beings. But whose kindness is that? It's really the Buddha's kindness. Without the Buddha's teaching, I couldn't cultivate such immeasurable love. Maybe I could have an understanding of it, but not really this vast love. And so so this is how all the disciples receiving the refuge vow should see it. See the Sangha as the embodiment of the three jewels. So that's the outer Sangha. And then from that, then through the training yourself, you become that. So you remember the kindness of your teacher, and that's also the worldly teachers, over and over again. So you can also think of me now representing the essence of all those teachers that you're grateful for in this moment. So you bring this gratitude to mind and think that within this Sangha that I represent, all the Buddhas of the three times and the three jewels are complete. So therefore you should receive the vow with faith, with devotion, with a pure perception. And the stronger your pure perception is, the more benefit there will be, the more your own ice block will melt and compassion arises. So when compassion for sentient beings arises, that is when the ice block of self-grasping is really melting. And so as we said before, you cultivate faith as you receive the refuge vow and a pure perception. And a pure perception is actually the essence of the tantric vows. It is the essence of the ultimate truth. So think that within all spiritual teachers, actually, within all teachers, the three jewels are complete, and now today I'm representing them. And here we're speaking about the teachers of both traditions, the mundane and the spiritual. Actually, they all are really Buddha emanations, because anyone who benefits sentient beings, who brings about their happiness, really is a Buddha emanation. And for that, one does not have to be a Buddhist, actually, because everyone really has that nature. So in terms of Buddhist, there is an outer, inner, and a secret Buddhist. The outer or external Buddhist is anyone who has taken the refuge vow. The inner Buddhist, actually, to be an inner Buddhist, one doesn't actually have to be a Buddhist. But an inner Buddhist is anyone who brings peace and happiness, benefit to sentient beings. And anyone who does that, actually that is the Sangha, or the inner Buddhist. And then the secret Buddhist is actually everyone is a secret Buddhist, because everyone has a mind. Every being has a mind, and what we call Buddha arises from the mind. So the mind itself is the cause of Buddhahood. That is, when the mind becomes completely purified, then that state is what we call Buddhahood, or a Buddha. And so currently our mind is defiled, just like polluted water. And that state of mind is what we call a samsaric sentient being. But when the mind becomes purified back into its natural state, that state is what we call Buddha. And so ultimately, there is nowhere where the Buddha doesn't pervade. So the Buddha pervades everyone. Therefore, the Buddha himself had said that all beings are actually Buddhas. They are only obscured by adventitious, by temporary stains. So actually, this statement of the Buddha is extremely profound and really very deep. And so today, mainly when you receive the refuge vow, cultivate such a pure perception and faith. And then, having cultivated that, what is it that needs to arise in your mind? It is the Dharma. It is the three jewels. And so again, you need to understand that the three jewels are within your mind. So first, your wish to receive the refuge vow, that is your Buddha, your inner Buddha. And what actually will give you refuge, your true protection, is the Dharma. And so keeping that in mind, holding this essence of the refuge vow in mind, please repeat the following supplications.
Della tambotri sotaga dobang ola dita tata taru doma de jesin choi parde de keligio de kangli dina sotala selunga zochebe lunga is lunga goni de sa ngo zochebe de domba mege kyang de dawa yang kang de rangen nanga de naka se song tanga 나 직송선 나 직송선한테 맛이 받아야 돼. 처에 받아서 케일인 거네. 근데 소탈도 너무 오래지. 네 만용 나가더라는 게 수유 통거에나. 그래서 처에 받아 맛이 받아.人맛이 받아. 내가 로제 내가 나와지. 내가 니네 야 자체가 너무 많이나. 라라 그 감당 때문에 케일이 좋고요. 근데 소탈도 너무 오래지.
So the first level of supplication is the essence of the pratimoksha or individual liberation vow. And this vow is taken from now on and for as long as I live. And in the pratimoksha or individual liberation, the main focus is the activity, the conduct of the outer conduct of body and speech, but also the mind. So that could mean to take a vow of refraining from any of the 10 non-virtuous actions, or it could mean to take the 4 root vows, or even just a single vow, or however many vows. So you take whichever vow to yourself, whichever vow you are able to observe. And even if it's just one, and then ideally in terms of timing, you take this vow until you die, for as long as you live. And so that is in the ideal case, so the longest until you die. Or if you cannot do that, you can take a vow for, say, a year or a month, or even just for 24 hours, for example, as is the case with the Nyingne, the one-day vows that we take. And you can also take these vows at home yourself. You can just think that to yourself. And so that is the essence of the pratimoksha, or the vows of individual liberation.
Zumba Gongcesor Dagendun Arang Minshi Jue.
Here you say your name.
Jesin Soy Parde Ganyin Namje Cho Sajela Japsen Cho Chokpata Trawa Namje Cho Shila Japsen Cho Tho Namje Cho Gindin Japsen Cho Da Jesin Soy Parde Japsen Zamba Nanga Sungwe Gemin De Zumpe Zong De Sor.
And then in English, Noble One, please heed me from this very time, and for as long as I live. I who am called, then say your name, take refuge in the Buddha, who is supreme among human beings. I take refuge in the Dharma, supreme among those free of attachment. I take refuge in the Sangha, which is supreme among assemblies. For as long as I live, Noble One, please accept me as a lay practitioner who upholds the threefold refuge and observes a few precepts.
Tili te tata kisin tsoi pa de song yin na yang tili Repong Gipsi ngawang poto Rinpoche ke te kin so dong domba na lunga ke domba yin na yang 상촉 받들이 좋지 이 생분도 많이 배 생분도 많이 배 유는 통제더니 다 같이 유는 원랑나 좋지 변나 로제 나와제 샤제 야 때문에 자충님 뭐 받아 지지받을 인초서 특히 소도 동반나 소요리 이러나 담자 제도로나 lunga 동반이나 상촉스고 제다나 우리 제다가 지하철만 벌어들이 좋고요래지.
So now we took the vow for as long as we live, but actually the great Drebung Geshe Ngawang Punso Rinpoche, he said in his explanation on the Mahayana Sojong vows that actually you can take even those vows until attaining enlightenment. It doesn't have to end with death. It all depends on your aspiration. And if you have the aspiration, you can take the vow for however long. It could be for as long as you live, or it could be for a year, or a month, or a day, or until you attain the essence of enlightenment. So this is what he taught in his commentary on the Mahayana Sojong vows. And even if you take a vow of body or speech, if you seal or kind of infuse this vow with bodhicitta, then actually it will be sustained for many lifetimes.
And
these vows, the essence of these vows is the individual liberation vows, which is to abandon harming others entirely. And of the actual words of the Buddha, it corresponds to the line, "Do not commit any wrong." And then the second vow, the commitment, is related to the Mahayana vow of bodhicitta, the mind of bodhicitta, and this is the vow that we take until we attain enlightenment. And here you say your name.
Jesse Sancho Jingbola Chichapardo.
Jesse Sancho Jingbola Chichapardo.
Ganin Namjecho. Sanjila Japsencho.
Sanjila Japsucho.
Chapata Drava Namjecho.
Chapata Drava Namkicho.
Chula Japsencho.
Chula Japsucho.
To Namjecho.
To Namkicho.
Genduna Japsencho.
Genduna Japsucho.
Da Jesse Sancho Jingbola Chichapardo.
Da Jesse Sancho Jingbola Chichapardo.
Japsen Zamba.
Japson Zimba.
Nanga Songwe.
Nanga Songwe.
Gemindo.
Geniendo.
Lopung Jizong Doso.
And in English, Master, please heed me. From this very time and until attaining the essence of awakening, I who am called and say your name, take refuge in the Buddha, who is supreme among human beings. I take refuge in the Dharma, supreme among those, free of attachment. I take refuge in the Sangha, which is supreme among assemblies until attaining the essence of awakening. Master, please accept me as a lay practitioner who upholds the threefold refuge and observes a few precepts.
네, 대가라다다의 사지 까르나니 개와 버선 초발제 제와대 네 레세 나니 진우 진피 접제 접나 상속서도 너무 상성 대노나 피바 접지 접고 사지 로고도 바테리 진피 접제 접나 상성 그래.
So then in the refuge card, the actual word of the Buddha corresponding to this vow is perfectly practice virtue. And then in terms of the vows, also on the card, it says, when benefit of others and its cause are accomplished, this is the essence of the Bodhisattva vows. So basically it is to think that I must benefit sentient beings. That's the essence of the Bodhisattva vow.
아스마라들이 이 같은 마트들이 돈나고 잠도리다 강의에는 사실 그좀 뭐 시합 최진은 뭐 상능지 거기 보기에서 들이 다사다 동체 상들이 들이 대회는 들이 다다디 게직된 수고 나당만 거나 디 도바디 양장의 니 말을 레게도 도바디 사진 남갈 거는 게 소고 요리 배나 가게 소 정성 니바 오시여리 노말랑이는 니바 마소 백하고지 요새 고발들이 상마제제 받더니 백면 그 제가 이 사진 좀 뒤에 그 들어오는 남자가 정한 남강라서 소 정도 다리는 탱이 숨소 정도 요리 이런 것서 상적선도 봐 내가 탐지가 되는 전바에는 동아시아가 풍부스도 니린섬 신린섬 로고송 대 니밤 용원이 되샤고 로고는 니바 돈발라는 니바 용거래서 니바 샤리 샤기 득발라 용디 미자 니바 샤고에 득과데 득과 용디도 샤과시 줘봐 대사지 까리 대하고래더니 득바면 좀 샤과시야 사지 까리 들이 대외들이 대강이 셋대씩 뭐 코랑이라들이 이 로버 드반 나도냐 제가 요 말 로버 나도 다로 줘요리 셋대씩 뭐 코랑 보여줘요 말이 얘네들이 다다 제직딘 수고가 송요리 강에 이 대레니 송때 상하게 줘 받을 마에서 개와라 거송 따뜻 동담베디 대식 뭐 노바테리 무슨 사자지 뭐 공주때 다시 공자신은 신이라서 그걸로 통화 대상 거. 나 상마제 받으면 공자고. 마시 받을 나에서 개와라 거서. 강리. 딱 나이나 마시 받을 나에서 개와 거다 내리. 삭제지 개와 사라. 동치와 빌릴락다라고. 뭐 계좌 로제пт지 내 빠지면 내 욕투고요. 용원이는 때 강소를 쳐. 니네들이 랑코 니나 괜히는데 니네들이 사진 인추 주면 제지. 강리 니는 콜로지 장가가 쏴. 나가 장가가 쏴지더니 팬들이 사진 담는 초밥은 초밥 쳐도 줘봐. 자저리 사진 사야만 보라. 니네들 도망가 초밥 퍼쳐 그래. 사진 인추 주면 제지.甚至좀 유명해. 나의 사절을 꼴봐도 요 말이 따뜻이들이 쇼 숨고 사야만 보고 진로요 그래서 말때들이 가당들이 오늘 뒤불고 가르쳐 쓰고 그래. 따뜻이래서 로마니스들이 루벤의 보통적인 루벤은 논란이 있어서 따뜻이 como 찌레들 로마니스들이 고소를 보면서 그래.甚至좀 유명해서 그래. 얘네들 로마니 제마 사람들이 고속에 구종도나는 송을 야배양 통홍성 살아도지 통홍성 그래도 고속 제마 사람들이 똑똑고요. 나를 우럽 주면 계속 랑게 현고만 대바지나 양 다디는 좋았다. 다 납다 이디 좀 다로요. 실제는 기계는 약다디 다로요. 무조건 데려라고요. 타독 사제가 고방 세부도 차공도 보듯이 셨으나 사제라고 샘들이 대회들이 직디서 뭐지 소동이 있었는데 하도 특히 저보다 책임용 성마지 저보다는 마에서 개발하고 곰자들이 마시 받을 마에서 개발하고 있는다. 라코르데 직접도 맞으네. 그 대레인의 동들이 막 상타서 받을 마에서 개발하고 딴 일이야, 용례야. 딱 그리고 타마팀들 타마팀이 접에 나왔지. 야, 니자 자체를 마치네. 비용도 타고요. 내 비용도 와르는 뭐 송그리. 인기를 보지가 살리죠. 송그리. 노바 송은 통은 최소적으로 송나. 비용 출자송. 너 개베사와는 출자와시. 내라서 봐서. 되는 통까지 송는지 수남지 똑대 초라로야 요르마 먹이와나 딜레지 미연구 요리데 기와나 딜 기와지 먹이와 싸마서로 돈 소동시 받으란 게 내말이는 거서 알아자고도 도바터고도 통탕고도 베테사고 찌빠찌짱이 설렁하게 디 소동지 그런데 옛날에 제 말라리 비해서는 앙이냐마 바다는 범 초세에 섭돌 샤르니장 쇼르니장 셈을 섭다시리 송송티도 설 주보로 섭다지지 다때다 용도 통스 난 셈섭다지 기초보레스 난 셈섭다지고도 되지 봐요 내가 지금 시합 모데 시합의 상제에 내려더니 나니 sob디마마도 내가야 뭐시 이나니 기시시데 돌나 강도 쫄람 저시 랑그 생전 내 갑자다시 송로 다때 있는 제만한 줄 알아서 뭐요 최근에 락가리 tamtaro controlando se control de tomar foda levo o te control da hako no essa de control va hako se tá uma charo tá diris segundo que se 박차 총총 야지 하마 오라 들이들이 째기 아니냐 멋지가 되는 멋지게 중생 통나 어디 그것도 약물도 없어 이 섬 예술 들면서 control을 나 박차 요도 열 찾고 열는데나 차, 니 차, 섬차지, 들이 다 가리네. 다 잘라내. 난 요거도. 야, 조구통으로 다 자사자거도. 대도 차, 박차 토보 름지 때에서 고장만 하서 박차 토마조디 하고 그래. 박차 토마조디 하고 그렇지 사제리. 사제도 뭐 시합성. 대다고 때네. 들이 맛이 받을 마에서 개발하고 대 가리 다 달리 동대. 돌나 강도 쫄랑 째서 저랑 세대 내가 저라시 전도 된다 십지 된바 진시지 사제기 좀 시합돼 다 잡문이 되더니 시합들이 이제 뭐래 대리 대제외들 진짜다 너가 창송 지디 섬제 보고 동다도 하거나 니비 다낭 정시바디 세고도 다도 septi 담지 사제기 뭐지래지 대리스는 니비 다낭 정소리 대제기들이 다다다 나게
So that was the second step, and then thirdly is then the ultimate refuge, and we have said before that is to understand that when you take refuge in the Buddha, you are taking refuge in your own wisdom, which is the heart essence of the Buddha. And when you take refuge in the Dharma, you take refuge in your own love and compassion, which is the heart essence of the Dharma. And when you take refuge in the Sangha, you take refuge in the spiritual, the virtuous friend, virtuous friends, which is the heart essence of companions. And so there's this one prayer that we recite in the beginning always, in the morning prayers. It's called the Dak Dangma, which is a prayer by Jigten Sumgan. And so first we say, all enemies who hate me, and so on. And then we say after that, and for this purpose, I will apply body, speech, and mind towards you. So that is that prayer by Jigten Sumgan. And we should read that each and every day together with our refuge prayer. Because in this way, actually, we are again and again purifying the mind. So there is this practice called the sojong, which means the purifying and restoring, like a ceremony, a vow that we take. And so actually, so what we need to understand here is that when we take those vows, for us, mundane, worldly people in samsara, it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to make no mistake, to have no downfalls, and to, even though we take the vow, we still make mistakes, and we fall down from it. And actually, it is said that until you attain enlightenment, you will make those mistakes, and there will be some breaches to the vows. And that is why the Buddha actually gave this practice of the sojong to his monk disciples. So the sojong is this restoring and purifying vow, which is a one-day vow that is traditionally taken, for example, on the full moon and on the new moon, like twice a month, sometimes 3 times a month. And so now for us, so you are all lay people, like call it householders. And so for householders, it is also very significant to purify our violations. So for example, there is this practice called the confession of downfalls from bodhicitta, which is from the Three Skanda Sutra, or the Three Heap Sutra. And it is said that it is best you recite that often, like 3 times in a day and 3 times at night and so on. But basically, when you recite it, then your negativities are being purified. So what the Buddha said is not necessarily that you can't make any mistake, but what the Buddha did say is that you have to confess and you have to recognize it. You have to feel regret when you do make a mistake. So that's really the key point, because mistakes arise, and we shouldn't be judging each other for having mistakes. What we should do is confess. So it is also said that that in generally there are no good qualities to negative actions, but if there would be a good quality, then it would be their potential to become completely purified through confession. So we can purify, and that's the word of the Buddha, the instruction of the Buddha. So he didn't say never make a mistake, but he said that you confess it and recognize it. And so ultimately, our true nature is Buddha nature. Our true nature is pure, and it is completely unconnected to the various temporary, momentary thoughts and emotions that we have. So these layers, these temporary layers of thoughts and emotions, they need to be purified so that we can see Buddha nature. But Buddha nature is never affected by them, and Buddha nature never changes at all. So this prayer by Jigten Sungön begins with, so from today onward until attaining enlightenment, I will practice virtue with body, speech, and mind. And that reminds us of the ultimate truth, our ultimate vow, our own Buddha nature. It refers to the meditation on Mahamudra, or your meditation of shamatha, calm abiding, and so forth. So what you should think here is that until I attain enlightenment, I must practice. I will meditate and practice until enlightenment. So then next we say, from now until I die, I will practice virtue with body, speech, and mind. So for me, for example, that is to spin this prayer wheel. Spinning a prayer wheel combines the practice of virtue, of body, speech, and mind, all into one. It is a very easy practice, but it is extremely meaningful and powerful. And anyone can do it. For example, older people, even in their 80s, or even if you're sick, you can still spin a small prayer wheel. And especially, of course, younger people can spin one. So actually, when you spin the prayer wheel, what the prayer wheel accomplishes is that through the prayer wheel, you're making an continuous and ongoing offering to all the Buddhas. Because with each rotation of the wheel, however many mantras are contained in the wheel, they go out with each rotation, and in the form of deities and mantras, they emerge out and make offerings to all the Buddhas. For example, millions of Chenrezig emanate out and make offerings to all the Buddhas. And at the same time, secondly, the prayer wheel becomes a continuous and ongoing purification of obscurations of sentient beings. Because, for example, that's why I'm always constantly spin the prayer wheel, day and night. Because there are a lot of people who think of me. Many of them are alive, some of them have passed away, and I feel that I am responsible for them. They think of me, so I have to care for them. And that's why I'm always spinning the prayer wheel, so I can always send them the blessings and the protection. So, for example, there's this other prayer that's from the Bodhicharya Avatara that says that may I become the source of all desires and wants that beings may have. For example, a child to the childless. May I bring a child to the childless, a wealth to the impoverished. May I become like a wish-fulfilling gem to anyone's needs. And so thinking in this way, I'm sending out Chenrezigs and Taras through spinning the prayer wheel day and night, also thinking that in this way I'm paying back my karmic debt that I have with people who have been kind to me too, and who think of me. So in this way, the benefit of sentient beings is accomplished continuously by spinning the prayer wheel. And also, when you spin the prayer wheel, then Chenrezig and Tara always appear within the mind. In the Samantabhadra prayer, also it mentions, also in the Samantabhadra, the Bodhicharya Avatara prayer, also there it says, may they see, upon thinking of him, may they see Manjushri, or may they see Vajrapani, and so on. Or we can say, may they see Chenrezig. So this is how the benefit of beings is accomplished. Through my aspiration, when those prayers reach them, then also Manjushri and Chenrezig and so on appear in their minds through the force of my aspiration. So that's the second benefit. And the third benefit of spinning the prayer wheel is that it is a continuous accumulation of siddhis for myself. Because by spinning the prayer wheel, gradually I am purifying the dualistic grasping at self and other. And when that becomes purified, compassion becomes stronger. And actually, there is no higher siddhi, no higher accomplishment than to melt the ice block of self-grasping. Because the mind in its natural state, which is like water, is actually Buddha. So this is the meaning of the Sojong vow that we take, which in our prayer of Chikden Sumgun, the Takdama, it's very short, but it's extremely meaningful. So that was the first and the second. So one until enlightenment, second one until you die. So until enlightenment means to meditate until enlightenment. Until I die refers to whichever vows. For me, it is to spin the prayer wheel, because even if you can't do anything else, you can spin a prayer wheel. And then the third line says, from now until this time tomorrow, I will practice virtue with body, speech, and mind. And that refers, for example, to the one-day vows, such as the Nyungne or the Nyingne vows, that you can't take continuously. So if you think that you can't take a certain vow all the time, for example, you can think that I'm not going to smoke maybe just for a day, or maybe for a month, or maybe for a year. So even just for 24 hours, the benefits are really great. And that is also mentioned in the Vinaya scriptures that also soon Garchen Rinpoche will teach on. And so even if it is just for 1 hour that you take a vow, you're in that hour engaging in virtuous activity, and that is of an immense benefit. That merit is extremely powerful, and it will never become spoiled. And likewise, all our negative actions will not become spoiled. They will also ripen eventually. So this is what we purify. These negative actions we purify through the practice of the sojong. We bring an end to them. We purify the mind. So it is very similar to purifying, cleaning our body, something that we always do. For example, you shave your beard and you wash your face, you put on makeup and so on. We also need to do that. So since we need to do that, we also clearly need to purify the mind. The concept is very similar. Milarepa actually once said to his disciple, the girl Pardabom, he said that you're very good at cleaning your face, but it would be even better if you would clean your mind. So what he's basically saying is that don't pay too much attention to your physical appearance, but pay a little bit attention to your mind, purifying the mind, and a little less on your body. And how to do that is through mindfulness and awareness. And the essence of this awareness is your inner Buddha. So this is said in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, which is really all I know. So in there it says in verse number 36, in brief, whatever you do at any time, look at the state of your mind. What's the state of my mind? And in this way, you accomplish the benefit of others through constantly being mindful and looking at the state of your mind day and night. So this is really, this verse number 36, is really something that I hold on to tightly, just like it's like a nail in my heart. It's always there. And I always remember it. For example, sometimes when you get angry, there's this feeling of anger that arises. And then if you're mindful, you recognize, oh, I'm angry. And so then you see that this is it. That's the one that creates all the difficulties. This is what needs to be purified, because if I let it go, if I just let it stay there, then I have already placed an imprint in the mind. So it starts with a very small imprint. But if you allow these small imprints to stay in your mind and without recognizing them, then the next one, there will be another one. So then you have 1 and 2 and so forth. So you accumulate these imprints in your mind. And then when those imprints become really deep, then one day, for example, you see a person and you immediately see their fault and you think that, oh, they're just bad, then that naturally just stays in your mind. And so with that thought, they're bad, it becomes even deeper. So then you have 2, 3, and so on imprints. So you're reinforcing, you're deepening the imprints of resentment and anger in your mind. And the same is also for attachment, the object of your desire. If you just allow it to be there, then you accumulate 1, 2, 3 imprints and so on in your mind. Or something that you want to buy, some kind of thing that you really like, and you think that I have to buy this, I have to get this. Or for example, when it's about relationships and you think I have to get married and so on. So as it is said in the Samantabhadra prayer, these imprints gradually become deeper and stronger. So that's why it is important to recognize them the first time they arise, immediately. The very first time the small imprint arises. And that recognition, the one who recognizes it, that is your inner Buddha. So that wisdom, that awareness is the heart essence of the Buddha. And that is sustained, for example, when you take this vow, until I die, I will practice virtue with body, speech, and mind. Or from now until this time tomorrow, I practice virtue. And so that third verse here really refers to this moment to moment, looking at your mind according to verse number 36 in the 37 practices. At all times, look at your mind. What is the state of my mind? be mindful at all times. And this mindfulness, this conscientiousness, that is the heart essence of the Buddha. That is your inner wisdom. That is your actual refuge, your actual protection. And it is from this wisdom that compassion arises. So this is how you should understand the 3 lines of Jigten Sumgön's prayer that we recite. And then also lastly, so the first one were the individual liberation and the Mahayana, and then lastly, that is until enlightenment. It refers mainly also to the tantric vows of a pure perception toward the universe and all sentient beings. So gradually, as your mind becomes purified more and more, you see things in a more pure way, and you finally recognize that your own mind is actually Buddha. So this is how you should contemplate when you recite these prayers. And so then next, I will take a hair clipping from the crown of your head.
대대설이 책텀 요리 강리들은 니가 단 통지 말이 너희들 좀 말이 단 잡을 남가 깔만그 장가가 너희 장미 말이 석회하고서 사지고도 하고 말이 적들 장미 봐 장미 섬지 시를 사지를 납차래 대는 뒤 가래 다 거리 마다라 가래 요리 다라 가래 다 거리 저 고아들이 다 빠져 요리 대하고 거리 가리 사강 사야만 뭐 요나는 이제 탈공자원 되지면 딸이 이 말을 때 고말을 잠깐 터주고 요리 네 선우직이양 터주고 요리 나주세진은 뭐다 빨리 하고도 따따로 내양들 때는 mench해요 하고 보니 때문에 답을 잡고 봐 저기 요리 하고 그 말이 라고 말이 다 내양들 셔도 답을 미마하고 셔서면 눈이 지나 파 치와라더니 관참이오면 코로나 이샤로거리 설기와를 제거요리 근데 주마다버리 너한테는 다 집어나 언데그리리 야무데그리 말에서 싸보니 요리 어디니가 다 거리 대발이 가려 대발이는 니제리면 다 빨리 토로도 하대 아주 대발이 되는데 좀 더 하지 내가 말이는 몇 개 토조리 소소로 나사동이 누구서로 민고 용고도 하대 다 내 말이 떼하고 말이 니가 말이 니가 뭐 니는 따와래 도난게 가리 니가 주마다 버리지 대가리 니가 주마다는 네 주마다 속하고 그래 생우부 내력들 다 사제 전문으로 도지 청지 생우부 코란이 제와도게 저와도게 다 때려 요 말이 나카다 버지 저때는 밥살이 대외는 뒤 내력 때문에 내가 사자 집어 속받치고 닦고 요래 얘네 진직디에서 우고 다 죽고 받쳐받는 송요래지 강송이 추그 이상 바데 내력대 되면 사자 집어 요말 속받치고 요말이 오마치고 로그를 왜 저를 위해서 접고 그렇지만 뭐니 맹잡을 돼 맹떡까지 돼 동나라들이다 요미 매미지 생그 내력대라 추그 이상 바데 내력대 생그 내력다 그러다 내력을 따와지 이 석에 납서 어찌로 지남자 참이 시요리 라그 내력도 나 투바고는 매지 랑그 생기 내력도 제 따니 하고서는 들이 쫄었던 간지 무거워서 락차래 명하도는 요래지 나 뒤에 내력도 가리지 내력 따라 다 사자치고 내력 따지 사자치고 실명다고 그래지 사자치고 때나 가리지 사자치고 당연히 타 죽고니 땅에 타 죽고니 뒤타도 서비스에 석지부터 말이지 두 번째는 사자지부 타 죽고는 깨양 뭐샘 랍다 출라 뒤송에 사실 타 죽고 책대리 찍자요 말이 야 또하더니 졸라 대리 지금 샘서 타지 샘이 또뭐 타지 야 깨양 뭐샘 랍다 출라 뒤 저 세고 내려올 따 네방가 망고 맞지 이번 세람지 광절까지 레들 기양 세람데 줄어들 직장에 그 선남과다를 디사오 하고서는 다 되게 좋으래 데르들이 고아가 타 주지 오 생무대로 데레스 뇨아가 타 주지들이 습진의 삼유제시 라마나 뭐지 데르디 양다양도 거나 참나들이 라지를 연구를 참잖아 동상 스스로 당서 하자 중고도 자용을 되라 그게 대화치 뭐지 뒤가 되니 줄이 많이 세척을 남고 말이 라그라 타지 버리 대리 조사지 좀 되는 것을 손은 지켜 먹고 소리지 다 줘야 그래 얘네들이 때려 박혀서 찌양만 셈라 대출라 돼서 말아리비 셈다 남가 체미를 죽을 롱도 봐야지 따뜻히 금치농지는 다 송대로와 말아리비 송대로와 세고 내려오라고 타 주고 어디 그랬을 뒤까지 이 당하는 다 마다 무보리 말이 가는 싸고 말해 통대를 누마다고 뛰는 팝살이 내 말이야 마사 내 말이야 마사 대사들이 학원에 내려오들 거 누마다고 해서 누마다고 땡땡땅 빠와도 땡땡송 이런 동안이 돼서 거리 그때 당 하도 그때서 사실 맞기는 꼭갖고요 이 고아가 다 줘봐도 뇨아가 다 줘봐 니요래 이렇게 나갔다는 절사를 시와이 그때 하동 차송
And so then regarding the tantric vows of the pure perception towards the universe and sentient beings, so when we say that when you become skilled in seeing what appears and all beings or the container and the contained is pure, within that you have mastered the tantric vows. So maybe it's a little bit difficult to understand that based just on those words, but this universe and all beings, what that is that everything that we constantly see and encounter. So it's everything. It's not just the world that appears around us that we can see, but it's the entire universe. For example, all of the planets and the stars. There's this limitless universe. The Buddha had already said that there are countless universes and planets and stars, not just this one, not just this world, not just this planet. And so the Buddha said in his teachings that don't just look at this world. So already in the past, in those days, the Buddha said that there are so many universes, not just this universe, and many planets and stars and so on. So in terms of seeing there is pure and impure now, what we first need to understand is the nature of this outer manifesting universe. So first we need to see that it's not just this world that we live in, but there are millions and billions of planets and stars and universes. And even though they physically manifest, their true nature is really nothing more but dust, because they are impermanent and they will disintegrate one day. They will completely crumble, fall apart. And likewise, also this world, this planet, will fall apart one day, will come to an end. So that's the impermanence of the universe. And then also the sentient beings, all the beings in this universe are impermanent. And that's something that maybe nowadays with the pandemic we are a little bit more aware of, but actually nothing really has changed. It's always like that. It's just now, because it's all around us, we think that, there's all these people are dying now in the pandemic. We think that now this is something that's happening new, that's just happening now. But actually, maybe now is just the time that we recognize what's actually happening all the time. Actually, beings are born and beings die non-stop, like an ever-turning wheel, all the time. So when you recognize this fact, then things begin to appear like illusions. And how we see things as purely is that first what we need to purify is this labeling of our ideas as this or that. For example, we think that Basically, there is two ways we see things. We think that that's true, that's real, or we think that that's not true, that's not real. Both of these thoughts, kind of concepts, need to become purified. This thought of it's real, it's true. Nothing is really true because everything is impermanent. Everything will disintegrate. And nothing possesses any true substantial existence, like a self-sufficient substantial existence. So that is the outer universe. It doesn't really truly exist. So first, that is what we need to understand, but then also we shouldn't cling to the idea that nothing really exists. So basically, we should not cling to anything at all, whether we think it's real or it's not real. No view should be held on to at all. But both sides should be seen as illusions, illusory by nature. So that's the first thing that we understand, to see the true nature of the mind. And then finally, when that is actualized, then one transcends this dualistic existence. One becomes a Buddha, for example, the Buddha Vajradhara, who transcends birth and death. So the mind itself, the natural state of the mind, never actually really experiences the suffering of birth and death. It doesn't exist in space. In space, there is no birth and death. So that is something that we recognize through practicing, for example, Mahamudra or Dzogchen. But these are also just designations. Mahamudra and Dzogchen are just names. Actually, Jigten Sungen said in the Gongchik that, so in terms of the Buddha's teachings, he said that the Buddha, what is taught is only the fundamental nature of all phenomena. The true nature of all phenomena are taught by the Buddha. So it's just that we label them, that we label this realization with terms such as Mahamudra or Dzogchen or Madhyamaka, the middle way. Through the middle way, the Madhyamaka, for example, we resolve the view, the ultimate nature through logic and reasoning and so on. But these are all just names and terms. Ultimately, the ultimate truth transcends all of that. And it's neither existing nor is it non-existing. So the Buddha only taught the true fundamental nature of phenomena. And therefore, what you should do is to look at the true nature of your mind. Look at it as it is in its natural state. And that's what we call viewing the natural state. And who has seen that natural state? For example, one master that everyone trusts in is the omniscient Longchen Rabcham. And he had said that when you realize the natural state of the mind, there is no higher learning than that. So meaning that once you have seen the true nature of your mind, you don't have to learn or study anything anymore. So he said that in a text called the Menga Tzu, which is the Treasury of Pith Instructions. So therefore, all we need to do is to look at our mind, look at the nature of the mind. And that is what we call a state of Mahamudra. It is like you're kind of looking with glasses or like a magnifying glass. You're having a very clear view at the nature of the mind. And so what we need to resolve, what we need to recognize is Mahamudra, the nature of the mind. And it is something, Mahamudra, the true nature of reality is something that we can never completely comprehend through words at all. But it is taught in the Mahamudra teachings. It is said that the way to resolve it, the way to really recognize its nature is, it is said, without a single thought, decisively look at your true nature, your ultimate nature. Actually, everything is included within these words, and there's nothing more than that. The sutras and the tantras, everything is in this sentence. So just look at your mind without a single thought, meaning that when you look at your mind, then and you meditate, there is then a moment arises where thinking stops and no other thought arises, so no past, no future thoughts. So you're in the present moment in between all the thoughts, and in that moment, sometimes just naturally on its own, you know the nature of the mind, you see the nature of the mind. And so this is how you understand it, how you really ascertain the nature. You know your true nature from an experiential level. And so when you then see this nature of mind without any thought in your mind, it's just like vast space. But there's also a clear knowing there. You know your true nature. So there are different ways of understanding the nature of the mind, and so we can understand it through like an intellectual understanding, where you just think that this is how it is. But ultimately, you need to resolve it through an experiential understanding. It needs to come from an experience. And the experience arises, now as you continue your practice, an experience arises. It arises also from the moments of feeling love and compassion for sentient beings, and also devotion to your guru. And then within that state, you continue to meditate over and over again. And so as you habituate, sometimes this knowledge of your true nature just naturally arises. Suddenly you know. Suddenly your mind is completely empty, and you feel so happy, so joyful in this moment. And that is what we call the great bliss of Dharmakaya. So there is nothing, no more question left in your mind. It is something that clarifies everything. So even if the Buddha would come to you in person, there is nothing more left to ask. You would have nothing known, you would need nothing from the Buddha. You have seen everything that need to be seen when you just see this moment. And so that is what Tilopa meant in the Mahamudra teachings of when he said, without a single thought, decisively look at your true nature. Also Milarepa had said that when you recognize that your mind and space are indivisible, you have recognized the Dharmakaya. So these words by Milarepa and also the words by Longchen Rabcham are all actually the same in essence. They speak about the recognizing on an experiential level the true nature of the mind, and this is really what determines your perception, your pure or impure perception. So therefore, with regard to the outer universe and all the sentient beings, when you're in a state of meditation, you don't have to think about them as they are pure or they are impure. Don't think about anything at all, about anything whatsoever. No thought, not a single thought. So you don't even have to conceptualize the purity. No thought. There's just seeing and experiencing. And from within that state, and naturally an experience of everything is like illusory arises within you. So for example, in the sutra path, this is referred to as the illusion-like samadhi. And then there is the hero-like samadhi and so on. There's different kinds of samadhi. But this samadhi, this illusion-like samadhi arises when there is no grasping at either now it is true or it is not true, or it is pure or it is not pure. There is just no thought in your mind. So this is how the illusory samadhi arises, and from that arises a pure perception. So basically we have those two ways of understanding a pure view, and one is through a more intellectual knowledge, and one is through experience, so actually experiencing it. And so this is regarding the the secret mantra vows. So within that, as it says in our card, within a pure perception toward the universe and all beings, all the tantric vows are complete.
단 매청 좀 맹치 못하니 자반 좀 봐도 나면 맹지 배도 동거요리지 드리지나 동지 레더 생내 면나 권종이도 대비냐마 취제 생기 바상보 소탐제레 나발자 대시제 좀더 최당대 뭐 속풀 바 좀
So now you receive the name, your Dharma name of the Great Jigong Kagyu lineage. Whatever your name is, you have to use this name. And so now what Rinpoche was reciting is, for this purpose, disciple, do you wish to have your crown lock cut in the presence of the master called Guncho Gyamtsen? So then as a disciple you would respond with, I shall be willing.
나서 셈제 담제 제줄라 수정제 바로다 전화용도 도발게 이제 용 버스름 차와래서 와도 받아도 만도 저산저도 봐 아버지부터 좀 영가하는데 말게 제니 뭐뭐데 남바도 되어네 뭐죠 이제 기와한테서 제가 남제도 군조도 뭐 나양만 이제 주서 소랑 방방에 니도 기분으로 동세 봐쇼 촌나 따다 담정 촉촉제야 저기 거서 저기 이제 제도들 놓고 돌래 단에 조고서제 도바쇼 루는 건 학지 제죠 안에 되는 소제 주다도 예다서 저스면 디바야 또 사자지 매와서 예다도 자와지 제제 고서 저기서 이제 가서 도저 문화서 제한 나콘로도 소중화 저 나가서 사만아 제다봐 Dennis and Jake would do Duggar, Jake, watches up. So, them do your doggos on Joe, no man, Tommy Chitapala, Longo, Satan, Joe, Dole, Doge, Changa, go by your door. That's a monante GD.
So now at the end, we please repeat in English the concluding prayers. Please repeat. Following all the victorious ones, may I train, bringing excellent conduct to complete perfection, and engage in wholly pure, flawless discipline that never lapses and is free from faults in this and all future lives. May I never be separated from the three jewels for the sake of the Dharma. May I even give away my life and work for the benefit of beings with great determination. May Bodhicitta, the precious and supreme mind, arise in whom it has not yet arisen. Where it has arisen, may it not decline, but ever increase, higher and higher, in this and all future lives. May I never be separated from the supreme teachings of the unequaled Drigungpa Rinpoche, and may glorious gurus take me into their care in all rebirths. May I never be separated from authentic gurus. May I enjoy the glories of the Dharma and having fully perfected the qualities of the bhumis and paths, may I swiftly attain the state of Vajradhara. In this and all my future lives, may I be born in a good family, be endowed with clear intellect, be free from pride, be greatly compassionate, and devoted to the Guru. May my samaya with the glorious Guru remain firm, whatever aspiration prayers have been made for the sake of sentient beings, from the great Samantabhadra, Vajradhara, on down to the kind root gurus, may they all be swiftly accomplished.
Trini tata yechila di jabdongumina jekin subu kopa koyore di kode ta chimbori mingjetise jekin subu shajudi trini gachu deng pake trini papo layer sone trini jekin subu ko lama trini di chechong izu trini tezu trini komangbozu trini chobar mochi ramneshi trini chobar mochi ke koche ya lang trini koche ya lang chungchong mati ya lang kalang na chok so kalang na chok 내가 kalang na shoga dogde ya chok bangati chungchu te da che dere diri chek kote se chese de yore de kalang do mo ngora so da yore 이 거기 때문에 소지 요래 내가 또 채물마 제 멘토네 데이터다 사자 결국 이만까지 가사칸데 짜치 보조리 가사카라 요래 진짜 탑지라 얼마 영바래 이 지스를 마사바탈 챔지 요 말이 챔지는 뭔가 소지 거적으로 소답을 들고 사는 거로 소지 밥송지 이때다 가고 나티네다 요래 이 대외에 빠졌는데 참아는데 잡을는다 다 퍼요래 거졌다 가고 무슨 요래지 대체도 좁아는 뭐지 소답들이 그런 거 바카사카를 마모요래 다 가고는 요리들이 들이 다 답적이 적대서 거 가서 저기 이제 요래 들인 자매들이 대답지 다다다 들이 다다 나는 게오 단티 같이 되고 맹댕이 커요래 내가 적대서 고지 이마든지 좀 강투서 제거래지 내가 적대서 뭐 껍질 거래지 거치고 가서 총 저절만 받았다 돌아가시에 좀저 갑자상 주요래 내가 송별 거래지 내가 다다 송강리 조금까지 되나 다수 공과치 반대리지 다수 공과치 반대들이 뭐지 좀 저기서 빠신 고삼자 매야래 좀 뭐지 시주 파티 체소는 들이니 신바디 잡네 들이세카 세타 좀 이것도 디사트나 들이 좀 뭐지 그 졸란졸 티안가 공부도 요레스 베자판을 들이테다 뭐지 그 졸란테 고트리 졸네 또 요레스 들이 또 하는 뭐지 톡대들이 가 삼행제리 이로 맡아줘 또 잡동리 들이 잡주는 맛 사촉설이 들이 다다송 콜로메도 사촉선 들이라서 봐 들이 사촉선데 사제 탐지가 톡지 봐래 들이다 적대성고 고성 톡용된 철레데 이로 맡아줘 이에 비버사와들 사제가 된 말이 들이 강도도 이비 좀 거리 들이 주로나 봐들 다시 델렉쇼이 이제 담마거제 뭐 들이
So on this refuge card, there is an image of a statue of Chigden Sumgön, and this particular statue of Chigden Sumgön is extremely precious, and it goes back to the time when Chigden Sumgön was actually alive. So that's when actually these statues came into existence, and so how they came into existence was through Chigden Sumgön's disciple, Garchen Rinpoche, who went to the Naga land, and then he brought back so to Luyul, and he brought back, basically he made two kinds of statues of Chigden Sumgun, and one is bigger and one was smaller, and he made many of each. And then he brought an example of each, so one bigger and one smaller one, to Chigden Sumgun, and he asked for a consecration of those statues. And so then first Chigden Sumgun picked up the smaller statue, and then he put it into his mouth, and he said, "Oh, it fits into my mouth." So that's why it received that name. The smaller statues are all called, in Tibetan, it's called Shaljugma, which means kind of a place, the one that was placed in the mouth, or kind of the one that fits in the mouth. So that's the smaller one, and then after that he picked up the bigger one, and he also tried to put it in his mouth, but it didn't fit, it was too big. So because it didn't fit, he bit into it. So he was biting into the statue, and he said it doesn't fit, and so he bit in it. And so then it left actually a tooth imprint on the head of that statue. And then after that, on all of the statues, the bigger ones, then the tooth imprint appeared miraculously. So he only was biting into one, but then the tooth imprint appeared on all of the statues. And so the bigger statue, therefore, then received the name Termama, which is like basically the one he bit on, the one with the tooth imprint. And those with the tooth imprint in particular are actually regarded as very precious, not only in the Jigong Kagyu lineage, but in all the lineages. Sakya, Gelugpa, Nyingma, Kagyu, and so on. You find them all over the place. Everyone considers them as really quite amazing and very precious. And now actually all these old statues from the time of Garchen Rinpoche, all of these statues that he made, they all then had this imprint of the tooth imprint. Then the new statues that are being made kind of as a replica of these statues, they do not have the tooth imprint, but the old ones all have, and they still exist all over the place. And so now it is my responsibility to propagate the Jigong Kagyu teachings. And so, like, one way to do it through the body also is that this particular image here of Chigden Sumgun, the statue, the main statue actually stays at Gar Monastery right now. So then after the Cultural Revolution, it was brought back and installed, and it still stays there. And then we took a picture of it and printed it on that refuge card that you all are receiving now. And so so that is also one with the tooth print. That's at Gar Monastery. And then there is, of course, many other Jigong Kagyu monasteries, and many of them also have this tooth-printed statue of Chigden Sumgun at their monastery. And then this particular one here on the image is in Gar Monastery. And then also we have commissioned those small replicas of these statues to be made that I have given as gifts to many benefactors and other people, for example, to Germany and so on. And so since I'm the one who now holds that name of Gar, tracing back to Garchen Rinpoche, it is also my responsibility to uphold and preserve Chigden Sumgun's teachings to the best of my abilities. And so, as I said, one way to do it in a physical way is that I have created or produced, have had those statues produced, like hundreds and hundreds of them, maybe around like 500 or so, maybe more, and I've distributed those statues. And then the way I'm also preserving the teachings of the Jigong Kagyu is by, for example, propagating the teaching of our main text in the Jigong Kagyu lineage, which is the Gongjik. And now in the old days, the Gongjik basically completely was demolished during the turmoil. And at that time, there was a wood block print version as like an original kind of version that remained. And so that was then preserved, because everything else, the lineage of teaching the Gongjik and so on, had been lost for some time. But then again, we reinstalled it. Also, for example, in the Serta monastery area, which is the monastery of Khenpo Jigme Phuntsok, we started the tradition. They were inspired by Gar Monastery to start the tradition of having discussion groups on the Gongjik and text. And that is something that was really initiated by Gar Monastery. So then also I made it a mission to print many of the Gongjik texts from this original wood block of the Gongjik. So that's the speech. And regarding the mind, Jigten Sumgön's mind is a mind of love and compassion. And for you, the disciples who receive the refuge vow, that's really the essence of your vow. It is to cultivate bodhicitta. It is said that the supreme protection sphere, the most powerful protection sphere, is bodhicitta. And that is the mind of all the Buddhas. That is the mind of Jigten Sumgön. So this is how I try to uphold Jigten Sumgön's enlightened body, speech, mind, his activities, and his qualities. And so mainly the teachings are also kept alive by engaging in activities that benefit others. And that is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help others, benefit others as much as I can, as well as I can. So anyways, Dharma friends, many dashi delek and long life to you.
Khenpo Gongjok mental kosong tu tin jang kan do tini mental beya yin tini tesa de Rinpoche long life pray in 26 den do yin.
So first time Khenpo Gongjok Tupsam will offer a long mandala offering to Rinpoche, and after that we will recite the dedication prayer on page 26.
Yeah, long life prayer.
The long life prayers on page 26.
Yellow book.
What? The yellow prayer book, yeah.
Benzara Zado Zamaya Mana Balaya Benzara Zado Denoba Dedan Member Sudegaya Member Zudegaya Member Anada Member Sabasida Member Yada Sawa Kama Zatamsi O Bangave Savada Gata Beda Mame Menza Benzara Baba Ma Zamaya Zado Benzara Bena Awo Yena Maradava Vajin Zarja Zaya Benzara Keva Sajara Mejoja Yanza Gove Bezo Honre Jabora Yalan Babo Lena Balaja Zaidamene Yada Lada Lamba Maya Danayagi Nabda Yodenda Lamjundo Zanda Damen Jenda Damen Jeda O Bazanje Yen Donjaya Ba Mande Baya Lodo Kolor Moje Nover Moje Sumor Moje Longor Moje Longbor Moje Mabor Moje Nadamchor Moje Mabor Moje Tarjim Moya Bambai Geva Ma Deva Ma Karma Medoma Dobema Nazarama Dajama Yama Dava Rambojayan Sulen Ambara Java Janze Bazana Dandaya Panjara Bazanza Masangba Meba Yengan Ambara Dava Danye Kunjong Edanya Chuje Zanga Bara Zambo and Choka Yabran Bavar Jawad or Jen
Page number 26, Yellow Book. Mandarin Drova Sarla Yagedo, Pendra Jebdan, Derlo, Naroika, Madame Dazan, Jede, Zongazo, Joba, Remza, Nanje, Gelezo. Kangen Zenya Yilla Dimbe Mu Deme Nave Lamne Danze Dagdim Njore Zeya Jojimbe Jonde Wanze Gumbe Gele Zor Namdain Timja Lapa Dawara Jo Doje Zambe Durza Bardaka Zini Sakin Yung Merang Ojong Edon Dimbenyam Kyabden Zor Shibzai Gunzai Gunjin Jijiji Dandra Nela Wanda Dragon Ba Rinjin Baraja Damba Zenda Ba Yeda Dazangom Zenjur Sadon Korlo Jirave Jarbodon Jedam Zangbe Zanjedon Namkai Dave Jabe Zevaje Zamba Jereze Survande
Thank you. Thank you, Garchen Rinpoche, for bestowing the Refuge Vows. And I want to welcome everyone who's taken Refuge Vows for the first time to our Sangha family. And I'd like to report to Garchen Rinpoche that the Sangha in Europe has recited 2,010,458 White Tara mantras since January 2021 for your long life. And I also want to announce that Susu, who wrote the biography on Garchen Rinpoche's life story, she has kindly made this beautiful offering for Losar of the book 1 of Garchen Rinpoche's biography in Tibetan, available as a free offering for anyone who would like a Tibetan copy. So please see our website for all the details. Happy Losar.
Dankeschön.